The traditional way of placing business in Lloyd's is that a submission comes into Lloyd's broker. From there, the technician will create a slip. The slip will go to the broker, who will go into the room, the underwriting room at Lloyd's. It's a common marketplace. They will go to the underwriter, sit down, maybe after waiting a few minutes, have a discussion with the underwriter as to the merits of the risk, why this one has particularly got this aspect, or whatever it is. From there, the underwriter will put down their numbers for premium, deductible, all the forms and wordings that are necessary. From there, they will sign it, and a quote is issued. When a bind order comes in, the broker goes back and notifies the underwriter.
SLIP is the document that really summarizes the risk. It's a short document, typically anything from 10 to 20 pages, has all the wordings, the summaries of the premium, the rates, the terms and conditions, and the actual wordings that describe in detail the coverage that's provided in each case.
I think so. Let's go through a sample submission, as it were. If, say, first thing Monday morning, you get a submission on your desk at 8 a.m. and you send it straight over to Lloyd's broker. Best case scenario, if we're on the East Coast, that gets you there at 1 o'clock London time. So after lunch, they will address it. A technician will get to it, create a slip. From there, the next morning, it is given to a broker, who then goes to one underwriter. Maybe he gets an answer, maybe doesn't get an answer on that first day. This is a best case scenario, and it will take some time. So you're looking at least a 24-hour turnaround. If the underwriter has any questions, if the broker has any questions, then you get an extra day's lag in the turnaround between every question each time. So having the Lloyd's broker in your time zone will reduce the amount of time in that lag between an underwriter question or a broker question going back to the producer, the insured, so that your quote gets done quicker. I think this will give you an end turnaround result time of a quicker quote.
There's an old game called telephone, and the telephone game allows you to start telling a story through a number of different links. And the more links there are in that chain, the more that story gets distorted. The more direct your story goes, the more accurate that story gets translated to the underwriter. Our ability to go directly to the underwriter and tell the client's story means the more accurately that story goes to the underwriter. And the better the chances are that your story is being heard by that underwriter and your risk is being understood by that underwriter as it really is. Absolutely. It allows us to customize even a small policy directly to the client's needs. That's one of the things Lloyd's does better than anybody else. Customizing policies is a matter of daily business in London. It's not a matter just for the big account or just the unusual account. But you can take the terms and conditions of any policy, almost regardless of size, and make it fit the needs of that client rather than taking an off-the-shelf policy and making the client try and fit the policy.
Quote turnaround time is something we can improve because the chain is smaller. With having a Lloyd's broker in your time zone, or near your time zone at least, the chain is shorter. So there are fewer people who have to understand the risk in order to pass it along the chain. The key to placing business well at Lloyd's is to understand the story and understand the entire risk. With that, it takes some time. Having fewer people who need to take the time to understand it shortens the time it takes to prepare the slip, to prepare the submission to properly go to the Lloyd's underwriter, and gets you a better quote quicker.
Again, as I've just said, it absolutely allows you to design a program, not just a policy, but a whole program around not only an industry, but also a client. Allows you to take parts of different policies, different wordings, different industries even, and put them all together, reaching across different boxes or different lines to get different packages to put together is a unique combination in Lloyd's. In a domestic market situation, getting a property casualty underwriter to talk to a marine underwriter can be impossible. In Lloyd's, reaching across between those different departments can be as simple as a couple of yards across the box. A Lloyd's cover holder or a Lloyd's correspondent are US-based companies that deal through a Lloyd's broker to get to London. They can have the power to underwrite on behalf of a Lloyd's underwriter, but at the end of the day, they're still dealing through that broker to deal with the underwriter. So there's that extra link in the chain. Being the broker as well as the cover holder allows us to deal again directly with the underwriter, so takes that link out of the chain and allows that direct dealing. Absolutely, but again, the great thing about a marine policy is you start with a blank sheet of paper and you can design the policy to fit that client. The difficulty is you start with that blank sheet of paper and you have to design that policy. So you have to know what you're doing. This is not the thing to do if you're not familiar with the coverages, you don't understand the forms, you have to be more proficient. This is not for the faint of heart, you need to know what you're doing.
Well, in order for business to get placed with a Lloyd's underwriter, it has to go through a broker. So you have to have one. Being that we are one and the same, our communication is a little simpler. You'll notice that a couple of these accents and a little bit of our training has been in British English and American English. Lloyd's underwriters typically speak in British English. Being familiar with the American workplace and the American wordings, and in the London workplace and the London wordings, gives us the ability to liaise between the two seamlessly. So we take and understand the risk, then we translate it for the Lloyd's underwriter, who will see things in a different view, and we can do that all in one seamless step, instead of having to do a first an understand and then a translate. The benefits of having Lloyd's underwriters versus admitted carriers is that Lloyd's underwriters have a little more flexibility, well, a lot more flexibility as to what they can and can't do. Lloyd's underwriters typically start with a blank sheet of paper and build up the policy from there. They don't have filed wordings, they have common ones that everybody uses, but they're not required to use any particular wording. For any particular line, they have a few different choices and a few different ways to manuscript those choices into a very custom and bespoke policy at the end of the day. With that flexibility, that desire to innovate, gives you a whole lot more advantages than just having admitted carriers. Admitted carriers do what they do very well, but Lloyd's is great for custom and bespoke.
And just to follow on from that, it's not just the forms, it's also the rates. There's no filed rates, so they can choose to charge a lower or higher rate. They can come in and customize coverages to take out an exposure that maybe a client doesn't want, or add in an exposure that maybe a standard market wouldn't offer. So it goes beyond just the forms. It's really a complete customization, almost regardless of the size of the client.
Well, Lloyd's, while being very traditional in the way they place business with conversations instead of emails, is very innovative in the products and coverages that they do provide. They are constantly looking at underserved marketplaces and things that are not covered quite accurately and trying to come up with better ways of covering them, deciding how to cover it best, what's the kind of rates that should be covered or should be charged for any individual risk and for books as a whole. Innovation is part of their daily work. There's very often, conversations that go around about new and emerging fields, and it'll go all around the entire marketplace. Is the topic or conversation of the day, where they're discussing some sort of new happening or something in the news and trying to figure out how they would cover it. So that leads to that really innovative mindset. So they can always have these very fresh approaches to covering things in the insurance world.
Lloyd's has been innovating on products since almost the day it opened. Virtually every major type of insurance that exists today was innovated in Lloyd's as a new product. Business income back in 1930s was a new product developed by a gentleman called Cuthbert Heath in Lloyd's, and insuring various parts of people's anatomy has been probably one of the more famous ones. Satellite insurance, animal mortality, all of these things were really pioneered in Lloyd's and adopted by people elsewhere. We've even taken 2 hours out of our graduate seminar coming up in CMIP shortly to dedicate it just to the innovative products that are being developed in Lloyd's and talking about the whole process of Lloyd's and innovative products. Speed, flexibility, really being able to deliver the right product quickly and easily.